Walking a path along the roots of Pikes Peak, you take a fork in the road to the Anselm Society Digital Pub. Inside is a raucous conversation on the arts, faith, and whether those two people having a nice conversation in the corner might be secretly dating. At a corner table, by the fire, are three people. One of them is warning everybody not to get him started on the Epic of Gilgamesh. No, seriously, don't get me started on the Epic of Gilgamesh. And that's me, Matthew Mellema, and welcome to Believe to See, a podcast of the Anselm Society Arts Guild. Here at Believe to See, we explore the relationship between faith, art, and storytelling. Our goal is to help you connect the great story, the great stories, and our own stories in order to understand what it means to live with a Christian imagination. So, as sometimes happens with these podcasts, this episode is based upon a single observation that I've made, in which bugs me. Take any story at all, whether it's a new story, old story, book, movie, TV show, whatever. If there are two characters who are good friends with each other, then it's a virtual guarantee that there will be some segment of the internet who is convinced that these two friends are secretly an item. This is the case if the friends are two men, two women, a man and a woman, or a frog and a toad. This is usually done in a sort of a pseudo-sophisticated way, with a knowing raise the eyebrow and an urbane knowledge of the way the world really works. Because we all know that if two people enjoy spending time together, then they must secretly want to kiss each other. I mean, what's even the point of being friends otherwise? So as you might have detected from my tone, this knee-jerk snickering really bothers me. Why can't people just be, friends? As is so often the case, C.S. Lewis expresses this well. In The Four Loves, he says this about friendship, quote, "To the ancients, friendship seemed the happiest and most fully human of all loves, the crown of life and the school of virtue. The modern world, in comparison, ignores it." And I would say that Lewis's quotation has gotten maybe more true over the years. And you can see where he's coming from and where the ancients were coming from when they said that friendship was the most human of relationships. Other relationships can be very important, but they also have this biological tie. Take a relationship to your mother and father or to your children. Those are very important, but there's also biological blood ties, the sort that, packs of wolves have with each other. Or take the relationship between two people who are a romantic couple. Again, that is a very important relationship, but there's also this biological, reproduction element to it. Again, the sort of thing that two wolves might feel for each other. Friendship, on the other hand, is very human. It's two people who just enjoy being together as human beings, without all that blood and biology and desires getting in the way. It's the purest form of relationship. And that is what I want to talk about today. Mandy, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing quite well, thank you very much.
Is there a reason we can't get you started on the Epic of Gilgamesh?
Oh, that's coming later. Don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry. Really great friendship in there I want to talk about. How about you, Evangeline? How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. And I had the same thought as Mandy. Like, when are we going to get started on the Epic of Gilgamesh?
That sounded like a threat/promise.
Yes. Or like an ask me what I know about Gilgamesh.
That's kind of this whole podcast for me, right? Threat/promise. Speaking of which, guys, can you let me do something very crass?
Sure.
Okay, listeners, I've started up a project, me and my brother. You've heard me talk about my book, right? Red Rex is getting published by Bandersnatch Books, basically a year from now. So November 2024, keep a lookout for it. Middle grade fantasy book. I'm super excited. And to help sort of get things going with that, me and my brother, Brian, who has been on this podcast before and who is also a book illustrator, the book illustrator for the book, we have launched a podcast together called The Brothers Mellema. So we look at different aspects of like the strange, so cryptids, Loch Ness Monster, ancient mysteries, all this stuff. Brian believes a lot of the fun stuff. I'm more of the skeptical sort, so we discuss it, and it's all very fun. Brothers Mellema on YouTube. If you all find it because of this, please let me know in the comments. That would just make me feel so good. Thank you both, Evangeline and Mandy, for humoring me.
Well, I've watched it and I love it. So
Well,
I was
thank
totally.
you.
I'm not up on all the episodes, but I have watched and enjoyed.
Well,
Yes.
keep a lookout for Monday. This will be in the past when the people listening to the podcast hear it. It's going to be on a supposed super pyramid in Bosnia. What?
What?
Anyway, Brothers Mellema, thank you all very much.
So
But-
you like it too, right, Evangeline?
I do.
You were saying,
Loch Ness Monster was one of my favorite.
Oh, I
think
didn't
there were
see
4
that one.
episodes on that.
Oh,
I
I
didn't
mean,
see
I just
them.
love
Yeah.
anything Loch Ness, Scotland, Nessie, So
Of course.
it was cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
doing good
We
work.
didn't even plan. I didn't even plan that, but thank you. So now let's get back to the thing that bugs me. People making these sort of flip assumptions about characters who are friends.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with you, Evangeline. Have you noticed this sort of percolating on whatever realms of the internet or pop culture you're on?
Absolutely. Yeah. My husband and I will kind of look at each other knowingly when we're watching a TV show. And, there's just that moment where you're like, oh, that's what's going to happen here. And I don't know that it's always a bad thing, but yeah, sometimes it does kind of like take you by surprise. You're just kind of jerked out of the story that you were into and, oh, now we're going in a different direction.
So, as is often the case, Evangeline is going to give a more nuanced, thoughtful take on the issue, but we'll get to that later. For now, is there one that especially bugged you?
Oh, that bugged me? I mean,
The rumors or the actual shift?
Just like the rooms, like, what's really going on there.
you'll have to come back to me on that one.
She likes to actually be thoughtful. That's how she gets to the nuance.
I guess
We could
that makes
learn from
sense.
her.
Well, I won't go into it much now, but, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate and I kind of like that setup. So
Right.
I have to think of one that really...
Friends to lovers?
Friends to
that's
lovers.
what they call the trope.
That is a
Yeah.
trope.
Yes.
I mean, I guess like in Friends, if we're going to go there,
Yeah.
the TV show, I did not like the Rachel and Joey thing.
Yes,
No,
thank
I
you.
didn't either.
That
Thank
was
you.
just, it was like manufactured. And I think that's the like issue that bugs me is when it's a manufactured romance and it's not, doesn't
Right.
just flow with the story.
Well, and honestly, and it's kind of sad because we're recording this just a few days after the passing of Matthew Perry, which was so sad.
Yeah.
But the writers did not intend to put Chandler and Monica together. And then they intended it to just be a goofy one-night stand thing, but it worked so well that their relationship is better. Ross and Rachel shouldn't be together. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that was kind of silly. But yeah, Chandler and Monica
Chandler and Monica
they had
totally
chemistry,
work.
and
And
it just
even when
makes
you go
sense.
back to like the first season, you can see it there, even though like the writers didn't see it. So sometimes I guess you're right. I can see what you're saying, like when it's organic.
Yeah.
But I think what bothers me is when it's a rumor and that really isn't where the writers are going at all. And I guess that would apply more to works that are finished rather than a series where you see the change.
Kind of the whole shipping thing that goes on
Yes,
where
yeah.
it's just everybody. And there's a different corner of the internet that is all about, Harry and Hermione or Harry and Ron or, whatever the the pairing is. And, it's good fun for them, I guess. But then, yeah, it just can get overboard.
Well, when I was teaching creative writing, I let the kids write whatever they wanted in their creative writing journals. And unfortunately, I hadn't read Harry Potter, so a few things got spoiled for me. The worst one being Snape and being in love with someone. I won't say, just in case, on the off chance someone listening hasn't read it. But anyway.
I will say the Venn diagram of people who listen to this podcast but haven't read Harry Potter it's probably a very thin slice. If you're out there, respect.
Yeah.
I respect you, but you're one of the few.
But they would write fan fiction. And so that is how, apparently there were some pairings in that series Supernatural that I never watched that some of them were very
yes, I am aware of
passionate about. Yeah.
Yes.
So, people get very, and that's another thing that's odd to me is when it really is just a rumor and there's not, it's not a friends to lovers trope and the writers don't do anything with it or anything, but the fan base gets like passionately argumentative about what they see in that friendship.
There's like even pressure on the writers because I remember hearing like Supernatural being a good example.
Really?
There being pressure on the writers from fans to make this certain, ship happen.
Right.
And that would be, think about what that would do to your, creative flow. It would just ugh.
And at base, it's based on the fact that the two characters are both hot.
So
it's like, well,
was my
this character's
impression.
hot, this character's hot, so obviously I want to see them kiss. So can you do that, writers? Go.
Especially true in the case of Frog and Toad.
Yes,
hot. Yes.
Thank you for getting on one of the ones that bugs me the most, Evangeline, because I love Frog and Toad, and they just have a great friendship.
They do.
So there's this corner of the internet where people are like snickering, it's the level of the "that's what she said" joke. You're like, they're totally dating. People don't go on bike rides unless they're secretly together. It's like, guys, can't the Frog and Toad just be friends here? Can't they just make each other cookies, make fun of how the other one looks in a swimming suit?
I know.
Why do we have to be doing this, guys?
Well, and
priceless.
Bert and Ernie, they make fun of that too, which I'm like, maybe they only think they're together because they fight like an old married couple. I don't know.
Kind of. And Frog and Toad fight too, but there's
more affection between Frog and Toad than Bert and Ernie.
Yeah, there is. It's so sad that we've lost even just the understanding of a friendship so deep.
Yes.
That,
Yeah.
And to that, like me going like pop psychology a little bit, but it's sort of in the ether now about, especially for men, how friendships are very hard to come by for men.
Yeah.
So when you pair this with the fact that, hey, if you talk to another person and you enjoy hanging out with them, obviously there's some romantic tension there.
Mm-hmm.
That just seems to be sending the complete wrong signal. Like a couple that kind of bothered me, and like this first one, they played for laughs. So, okay, so I get it. But in the new Sherlock series, there's this running joke that whenever Watson and Holmes would be together, they would be assuming that they're a couple. That this happened quite a bit.
Really?
And,
which one was this?
The Hounds of Baskerville and Study in Pink.
For the one with Benedict.
Which
Yes,
series?
the good one. Benedict Cumberbatch.
I never got that vibe.
Oh, they actually said it was just like running jokes. Like they'd be talking to the innkeeper, be like, "Hey, is your partner a snorer?" Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So again,
now I
those
understand.
are throwaway jokes, but to me, it's also like the friends, guys. Can like, do we have to assume that two people together? So that's one of the ones that annoys me. And then can I go literally medieval for this next example?
You're running the show here. We're just
Saint
here.
Francis and Saint Clare of Assisi.
Okay.
So
wow, we way went medieval.
Spill the tea, the medieval
here's the tea. Well, there's no tea is the problem. So Saint Francis
There's
and
no
Saint Clare
tea.
of Assisi, they were good friends. And, St. Francis started the Franciscans, one of the most important people in the Middle Ages. Clare, immensely important as well. She started a group of religious women, and both incredibly important people. They lived in the same town. At one point, St. Francis helped St. Clare escape from her home so that she could become a nun. And for centuries, there have been rumors like, oh, you know what? They're together. There's some tension there.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like, no.
That's ridiculous.
St. Francis helped Claire escape, so essentially she could elope with Jesus, okay?
Yes.
There's no tension there,
Right.
but everyone has been assuming it for years, like, can't a holy man and a holy woman
Just be friends.
talk to each other?
I know.
Yeah.
Apparently no. So same deal, very different sort of thing than
Very
Holmes and
different.
Watson, but
Yeah,
similar
very.
procedure there.
Yeah. To me, it's reductive of how meaningful friendship is.
Mhm.
Like it's like this assumption that friendship in and of itself, that you don't get anything out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to want something quote unquote more, which why is that seen? Why is sexual tension seen as more anyway? Really, it's different, but why is that a more interesting relationship? I mean, okay, we're
Well, there's one
we
reason.
are what we are. but I mean, when we aren't satisfied to say, wow, this holy man for his friend took this great risk and helped her elope with Jesus, as you said. Why is that not on its face amazing? Why does it have to be spiced up or whatever extra?
Yeah. I can see like, because it is a trope. The friends to lovers thing is a trope. And, you know, I can see why it's done so often because it does build tension. And, you know, I can't imagine like having to produce, you know, show after show, script after script.
Right.
You know, that would get exhausting.
Yeah.
So I understand why you know, that comes into play a lot in especially, you know, serial television. Because it's just, I don't want to say cheap, but just built-in tension because everyone responds to it.
Well, and everyone on TV is hot. Back to Matt's point earlier. But also, I think it is it's relatable. I hate that word, sorry. But it is relatable, though, because who among us has not, at some point, like in elementary school, I can think all the way back to elementary school, and all my little friends and the boys didn't, I mean, they thought I had cooties, so they were like, what are you talking about? But
it was an epidemic back then.
Yeah, like cooties were rampant in my elementary school. But anyway, only the girls had them. Anyway, but, you know, in middle school, high school, you know, there's always that friendship. I think everyone can relate to having the friendship that you wish would grow into more.
Yeah.
And so that's something.
We've all been friend zoned at one time or another.
I was sister zoned so much. Like every guy I had a crush on, I think it was like 6 guys within a span of 2 years. Right when I was about to tell them I liked them, they said, "Oh, you're like a sister." And I'm like, "Gah."
Well, but I will say one of my zone is girls' mothers loved me.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Kiss of death.
Oh, it was so bad. So
I
bad.
just was I always had way cuter friends. So I was hey, can you talk to Stacy for me?
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think, so not only is it built in tension, but it's also built in, like, we can see ourselves in it. And so that's a satisfying story to follow.
Right.
So it's understandable, as you said, that they would do that.
And
yes, absolutely. And I've had those sort of relationships on TV that I've been actively rooting for. You know, here we are after season 4 of Stranger Things. I am so on the Steve and Nancy bandwagon.
Yes.
Nancy, ditch Jonathan. He's a loser.
Yes.
Steve's the man for you.
In real life, too, please, because she's dating that guy in real life.
Wait, really?
The Jonathan guy.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
And what's so cool about Steve, though, is that, like, you know, he has such a great character arc.
He does, because I hated him.
Yes,
for
he was
first,
awful.
I don't think for the whole first season, but for a chunk of it. And then all of a sudden, I remember almost reluctantly liking him. And then
you're fully on board.
Yeah. And speaking of good friendships, the friendship with Steve and
Ooh, that is coming. We are getting to that, dude.
What's his
Don't
name?
you worry.
Dustin. Yeah.
Oh, that is coming. Don't worry, listeners.
That's like one of the best.
Don't worry. But yeah, and also apparently, sorry, listeners, one final Stranger Things point that I'm getting back to it. Apparently, season 1, originally the Duffer Brothers just wanted Steve to be like the sort of cookie cutter, you know, the jerk boyfriend, you know, like that character. But the actor who played Steve was so dynamic and charismatic and brought so much more to the table. Like, oh, let's give this guy more dimensions.
You know what? That makes sense. That kind of follows my journey of, like, starting to enjoy him. It was probably when they gave him more, because he's a great actor.
It's kind of the same, you know, Chandler and Monica thing. There was a natural chemistry and organic arc there, and they were smart enough to follow it and make use of it.
But they were determined to put Ross and Rachel together, even when it was stupid.
Well, Ross and Rachel were both terrible people.
Yeah, so that's true.
Kind of, but going back full circle to your point about the Joey-Rachel relationship. So listeners, if you don't watch Friends, not going to say boo, but basically Joey is this character who's, he sleeps around with everyone, and that's kind of the running joke. But for the three girls in the friend group, I always thought that he was very like older brother-y, right? Like he was very protective of them, and that was kind of a nice, sweet dimension to his character.
Or little brother is what I thought.
Little brother, almost. So, but then toward the end of the run, when you could tell the writers are kind of running low on the idea bank, they have Joey get a crush on Rachel, and they kind of awkwardly date for a while. And it really threw things off.
I actually admit I haven't watched some of those episodes because Peter and I lost interest. And
yeah.
And it's this dynamic where Joey, as the friend to those three women, was very compelling. Mm-hmm. Especially when you consider, like, oh, Joey, he's always, after every other woman. But these three friends are special to him. That was very nice.
Yeah.
And they kind of threw it away.
That's a really good point that you just said, though. Like, friendship was more valuable. And so they cheapened it by making it a crush like that. And
it's just Joey being Joey again.
It's just, yeah.
And I always wonder, I mean, perhaps because I take, romantic relationships more seriously than whatever. But like in these shows where they have these like romances and then, the show goes on and the friend group remains.
Oh, that's
and that
so
just
fiction.
Seems so unlikely.
Oh, impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, yes. It stretches the imagination.
So before too long, I want to get to some good examples of, book stories that are good examples.
But we're having fun complaining.
I love complaining. So let me also say sort of a segue here. Kudos to a couple who held the line, right? Like they did not give in. I think the best example is from the TV show 30 Rock. Jack and Liz.
Oh, I haven't watched that.
It's so good.
Oh, really?
Because, again, listeners, if you haven't seen...
Is that Tina Fey and Alex Baldwin?
Okay. So 30 Rock, two main characters. Tina Fey is like the head writer of this like SNL parody. And her mentor / best friend is Alec Baldwin as, this hotshot executive, Jack Donaghy. And their friendship is sort of the spine of the show. Like Alec Baldwin is Tina Fey's mentor, and they're also like friends. And it would have been very easy for them to have just sort of throwaway storyline where they like have a one night stand or like they date for a while. They did not. They held the line. They made it clear that these two are not romantic options for each other. And I appreciated that so much. The final episode of the entire series, Tina Fey tells the Alec Baldwin character, I love you, Jack. And it's very clear it is a friendship love. And it was great.
That's awesome. That actually reminded me of Mary Tyler Moore. I'm not old enough to have watched it when it was brand new. I probably am. Who knows? But so are you familiar with Mary Tyler Moore show and Lou Grant, her boss?
The blanks.
Yeah. This is going to fall flat for you guys, but maybe we'll have some listeners that are my age. There's actually, so she's a reporter and he's her boss. And it's Ed Asner and Mary Tyler Moore. Duh. But there's one episode where they decide maybe we should date or something. And it's hilarious because they kiss. And in the middle of the kiss, they both start cracking up because it's so ludicrous to think they could ever be or need to be more than friends. Mm-hmm. So So that just reminded me of that. And now you guys have to watch Mary Tyler Moore.
The gold medals for friendship so far go to Tina Fey, Alec Baldwin, Ed Asner, and Mary Tyler Moore. Yay! All right. Anyone else we want to mention where they just sort of, I could go on at length, where we felt that it kind of ruined the dynamic. Oh, here's one.
Yeah.
This one's going to be this will be my nuance point for you, Evangeline. Okay. Lancelot and Guinevere. So this is interesting because the Arthur mythology is very complicated. Mm-hmm. And Evangeline, I'm guessing you've gone on deep dives of this in the past, right? Based on what you write.
I have opinions.
Okay. So basically the origins of Arthur myths are very, very hazy. Mm-hmm. But what does seem to be kind of clear is that this very important subplot of Lancelot and Guinevere being, secret lovers, that was a later addition. And it essentially started off as fan fiction. Because just like today, there's a story you like, people want to embellish it, tell their own tales. That's kind of what happened. Someone, a fan of the story, was like, it'd be super cool. How if these two hot people get together?
If Guinevere cheats on Arthur
exactly.
and runs off with Lancelot.
So that's the origin, which is the origin of all these that I really dislike. But can I say, it makes the story more compelling, right? It kind of makes for more interesting reading, even if I am opposed to all of this on the principles I've just been going through. Mm-hmm. It made the once and future king a lot more interesting.
I think like the dynamic there that's so interesting is that Guinevere loves Arthur and Lancelot loves Arthur as well. Mm-hmm. And, not in that kind of way, people. But, there's that, best friend sort of relationship and, the respect and love that's there. And there's just a lot of room for tension and, for sacrifice and for kind of a bittersweet, like, this is there, but we're going to choose something else, if that were the case.
Yes. So that is a case where the sort of dopey fan fiction actually stumbles upon some things that have compelling narrative significance as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, in that story, like Tristan and Isolde is the same story, basically. Mm-hmm. So so it's not like, that's one of those like really, really old tales that's like, probably pre-writing,
right.
Passed down. But that's interesting that it kind of says something about human nature too. It's like, you choose this or you are, put into this situation, a marriage or a commitment or whatever, and there's the opportunity and the desire and, what are you going to choose? That's very human.
Yeah. And again, that shows, it's not just like kids these days who are doing this. It's a human tendency to do this sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And you can make the right choice.
Mm-hmm. And the faithfulness is like a heroic, noble act.
Yes. And on, Lancelot's part too. Where I can't,
that's what I meant.
I honestly can't remember like what happens with Lancelot and Guinevere. Do they?
I think it depends on the narrative.
Well, it depends on the version.
Okay, that's why it's muddled.
In a lot of the more famous ones, they are together for a long time. That's sort of one of the things that causes the downfall.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm
like,
they do get caught eventually.
It's very muddled in my memory.
He breaks up the round table.
Yep.
Okay.
She's like Yoko. Oh, no. No, no, that's different. Yoko and Paul did not have a thing. Sorry, I'm not trying to start a rumor.
Whoa.
Oh, you heard it here first. Mandy ships Yoko and Paul.
Be like good Broadway show. Anywho. So now let's go to talk about good examples, right? Because again, my flesh wants to complain about the bad all day long, but let's rise above that and talk about actual good examples from literature of healthy friendships. So let's start with, Mandy and Evangeline looking at each other. With Evangeline!
Okay.
Okay, what's your first example?
I got to start with Anne Shirley and Diana Barry.
Oh, that's a good one.
Perfect.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's where we get
bosom friends.
Our bosom friends and what is it? The soul
kindred
spirits. Yes, which is until this moment ubiquitous, and then it just went out of my head. But it's such a good way to describe that like special friendship that you're like trying to think of like how would I describe my friendship with this person, and you like stumble upon kindred spirit, and you're like, oh. Yeah, that's been done. There's a reason. It's like the perfect.
Was that coined by Lucy Maud Montgomery? That term?
As far as I know, that's the first.
Oh wow!
That's where
There's
I know
also
it from.
That seems to be at least an echo. There's some lines where it's like David and Jonathan in the Old Testament. They have similar language for those two.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah.
But yeah, I totally agree. Anne Shirley and Diana. That is a great friendship, especially when you see the function that it has for Anne. Because she's like moving to Green Gables as an orphan, and this is sort of like her first friend, so this sort of anchor point for her.
Ooh, anchor point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good.
And there's the sort of like passionate commitment of, young
Oh, young
girls
friendship.
to,
They're
to
secret
each
bosom
other.
friends
They
after
are.
Anne accidentally gets Diana drunk.
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
Make
That's
sure it's
Relatable.
raspberry cordial, kids. Make
yeah,
sure.
watch out for raspberry cordial. And that's such an ideal that so many of us, like, how many of us are still friends with people that we knew at that age? I mean, the only friendship I can think of is my Bethany and her friend Meg, who literally I was at the hospital with baby Bethany when Meg was born because her mom is one of my best friends, and they are still like super good friends. But that's so rare.
It is. Yeah.
And just the thought that one of the major plot points in the book is how Anne and Diana are separated from being friends for a while.
Yeah, that's true.
And how this is, well, Anne's given to the dramatic, but that's this
Yes.
legitimately traumatic thing for
It
her.
is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. That is a good opening example.
All right.
Mandy.
Well, mine's a little darker.
Oh my. A dark friendship.
Oh, I'm darker than Evangeline. When
Yeah.
does this happen?
Hey.
George and Lenny of Mice and Men. I know it doesn't end well, but I just think the faithfulness of George to Lenny, and of course, I mean, once again, that Venn diagram thing. Do you think it's fair to assume everyone who listens, I'm not spoiling anything if I say how Of Mice and Men ends?
Wait, spoiler alert.
Spoiler
Skip ahead
alert.
30 seconds if this is important to you. Okay, go ahead.
Because in the end, when he has to shoot Lenny, he really does have to. Wow, now we're going to I don't want to debate that. But anyway, in the fictional world, that is what had to happen. But when you really get down to it, like, what was George getting from his friendship with Lenny? And it really was, it was not a transactional relationship like we see so often in real life and literature. And so just George's pure love for Lenny, even though Lenny makes his life so bad so many times just because of who Lenny is and who he can't help being. But George's devotion to him all the way to the final pages is just beautiful. And I mean, I've never heard anyone start rumors about those two, but let's hope
I'm sure if we look, there's a Reddit thread somewhere.
Yeah, probably there's dark corners of the internet, but that friendship that's kind of one of those literary relationships that kind of has left a mark on me. Doesn't hurt that Steinbeck is my favorite, but so that's mine. So as I brought the room down, what are you?
And then he shoots him, but he kind of had to. But
Yeah.
So mine is actually a classic of this annoying tendency that we talk about. It's Frodo and Sam from Lord of the Rings. Yep.
Absolutely.
There are corners of the internet that are like,
Yes,
oh,
there
come
are.
on. Frodo sleeps with his head on Sam's chest. Obviously they're dating. It's like, okay.
Come on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, this is a great example of friendship. You could
Yes.
also go with Gimli and Legolas. You could go with Merry and Pippin. You could go with Aragorn and Gandalf. Basically, Tolkien really seems to understand something fundamental about the importance of friendship. He has lots of very strong male friendships in the book that we could pick from. But yeah, it is very interesting how they have this relationship where they are very, very dependent on each other, right? Frodo is completely dependent on Sam. Sam's completely faithful to Frodo.
Sam is the best friend in all of literature.
Yeah, and you see
great.
this sort of closeness developing over the time. And then there's also the closeness of the shared trauma that they all undergo,
Yes.
right? This sort of leads me to a broader point where you can find a lot of good examples of healthy friendships in a lot of war movies. And it's very
Good
easy
point.
to know why. So let me give you a couple points of data. So there's this really interesting Harvard study, this very long longitudinal study, lasted decades, where basically they started with this cohort of undergrads at Harvard in like the 1930s and followed them throughout their lives. So if you're an undergrad during that time, a lot of them went to World War II.
Mm-hmm.
So a huge percentage of this cohort went to World War II. A lot of them come home, live their lives. And one of the things they said that I thought was very interesting was that, obviously, the World War II was a horrific experience in a lot of ways, right? But the friendships they developed with the people they fought with were extremely intense, very close, and they remained in touch with those friends for years after. That was one of the things that they found most meaningful in their lives, is these friendships that were formed like in war. I was listening to a similar talk by this guy who's super old. He's he was a professor at Colorado College as of a few years ago. I don't know anymore, but he's a World War II vet, and he phrased it this way, that the men he fought with were kind of his they were lovers, not in that way, but in that way where they just had this extremely close relationship that you can really only get when you are in the crucible like that.
Yes.
So because of that, a lot of examples of good friendship are going to be similar. Now, that's what a lot of my examples are, but obviously Frodo and Sam would apply, and J.R. Tolkien, World War I vet, so he knows what he's talking about when it comes to all this.
Right.
There's like an element of intimacy, which is, I think, where you get that, lovers.
Right.
And we forget that is possible. That intimacy is not just physical.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It is emotional too. And you can be and have that strong and, known to each other relationship without there being any, hint or desire.
Right. Well, and this whole Jonathan and David debate that goes around and around, and I've noted, like, some people that I have respect for are convinced that, and I'm not a biblical scholar, but the things that the argument comes down to them saying that your love, is it Jonathan that says your love is better than that of a woman, or David says that? Anyway, one of them says that to the other. And so that's like laid out there like proof. Like, so therefore, well, no, it makes me wonder, have these people, the people who assume that means something sexual, have they never had an incredibly intense, really good friendship? Because, oh my gosh, friendship is, I think you said this in the green room, Evangeline, that before we started recording, that friendship requires intention.
Yes.
That other relationships don't, because they're a given. Yeah. Like I'm supposed to have a relationship with my sister. I'm supposed to have a relationship with my parents. And that's like assigned to me. And there's joy in that. I'm not reducing that, but then when you find a spouse, if you're so, blessed as to find a spouse, that's a relationship that has, biological and other purposes that are necessary and beneficial in society and stuff. But friendships, it really is just for the sake of the friendship and the shared burden and being known, like you said, Evangeline, and being seen. And to me, the fact that simple phrase, that these two men, Jonathan and David, could use words like love, and the reader automatically there's some filter there that they cannot fathom that could be anything other than sexual, is so sad to me.
And it shows how much we've lost.
Yes.
In terms of relationships and, just the richness that is possible that you see in the canon of literature.
Yes.
And you don't see today as much.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Because to our detriment.
Yeah. They've got to put like an undertone in it or something. Like, well, one of my daughter's favorite books, when I was reading to them, was the Percy Jackson series.
Yes.
And
good books, by the way.
Very good books. The first book, and I think Percy and Annabeth do get together later on.
At the very end.
But at the end
of the series. So 5 books in.
Because the first books, they are by design, by Rick Riordan's choice, they are awkward, prepubescent kids. That's by design. And so here's Annabeth, and she's all awkward, and she's got her messy ponytail, and Percy's awkward, and Grover's really awkward. And then they make it into a movie, and they cast the freaking hottest teenagers.
Yeah,
Of course.
they age them up
They
so that
age
they're
them.
old enough to be hot now, and then
They are
then
so,
they get
especially
together.
Annabeth. Annabeth is like the actress for Annabeth is like freakishly.
She's beautiful.
Yes. And so then they inject that in there. And that was by far not the only mistake made. That is, to me, the worst.
Did you hear they're remaking them?
I did. And Rick Riordan hated he hated the movie.
You did. So the author Rick Riordan hated the movies, so they're remaking them. I think it's like a Netflix series.
It's going to
or
be a
something.
series, and my girls are super excited.
I saw they cast an actual kid to play Percy instead of
a hot teenage boy.
teen. Yeah.
It has been really cool, just speaking of casting kids, like
Yeah.
to see the Stranger Things kids
Yes.
grow up. And like, I don't know, that must be really difficult for the actor, but it's really special on screen,
It
to
is. It
start
really
with
is.
them. Just
especially Gavin Matarazzo,
so
the
little.
one
I
who
know.
plays Dustin. Oh,
yeah.
Let's get.
Was
that's
that a
actually
good
that's
segue?
That's a fantastic segue. So I think there are actually several really good examples of friendship in Stranger Things, and to their credit, they've done a pretty good job of not, bleh. So you have, we already mentioned Steve and Dustin. So they become friends. Was season
2,
season?
I
No, it was
think
season
season
2.
2,
It was
yeah.
season 2. And that's another thing where it almost seemed to be by accident.
It really did.
Where you almost get the feeling the Duffer Brothers see the actor who plays Dustin, the actor who plays Steve, and like, oh, this is dynamite. Because they're different ages. Steve is like super cool. He's like senior in high school. Dustin is, I think he's like in 8th grade at the point. So they have like a big brother, little brother relationship. And their friendship is one of the best through lines of the entire series. Would you say, Evangeline?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. I can just see it right now, them
delightful.
walking along the train tracks.
I know. Yeah. That's like iconic.
It really is. It was sort of a Stand By Me moment.
Yes.
Yeah. And Stand By Me, by the way, that's an excellent, this group of guy friends, young guy friends, there was no weirdness attached to that.
Yeah, so you also have the relationship between like the core group of like the goofball kid friends, in season 1.
Yep.
Which I think they did a really great job on. There's this scene where oh crap, so they're Dustin, they're
Lucas.
Will, Lucas, and what's the main kid?
Mike.
Mike. Yeah.
Yes.
So
His name is too normal. It's hard
Too
to
normal.
remember.
They're all pretty normal names.
Dustin's
I had to think of 11 going, Mike.
Dustin's the perfect name for a kid in the 80s, though,
Yes,
right?
it is.
So
Yes,
there's
it
this
is,
one-
having been a kid in the 80s.
There's this one great scene, because, they're like 11 or 12 when the first season's going, where Mike and Dustin are riding their bikes together, because, that's how the plot works. And they're talking about how...
They're like Frog and Toad.
And Dustin's, yeah, exactly. So Dustin's telling Mike, like, hey, Mike, I know that Lucas is your best friend. I moved, these are the things that matter when you're a kid, right? I moved to town later. He had an advantage. He lives closer than you. So I know Lucas is your best friend. I'm just your friend. And Mike's like, no, Lucas is my best friend. You're my best friend. Will's my best friend. You guys are all my best friend. And there's this wonderful moment where Dustin kind of gets this spark in his eyes, like, oh, okay. And then they just move on with the plot. It's like, they didn't have to put that in there.
Yeah.
Sort of emphasizing the friendship between, four boys.
Right.
But they do. And it makes the movie a lot stronger.
It does.
Yeah, it really does.
And, I don't mind this is an example of kind of friends to lovers. I'm using air quotes because they're kids. But, Mike at 11, I feel like that progression is very natural.
They do it really well.
Moving. It's just so cool in the first, season when they're young and he, kind of helps her. Is very cool. But it just is, as they grow, one of the special things of getting to see them go from kids to teens to, I'm sure they're now like, well, I don't know.
I don't even
probably
know.
approaching 20, gosh.
They've got to
But,
be pushing 20 now.
that crush and all of that has felt
And the
very
awkwardness.
natural.
And it's understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then this season, so season 4, what was the name of that kid, the long-haired kid who's really good at Dungeons and Dragons? Eddie. Yes, thank you. So there's a relationship between Eddie.
If he were a real person, Bethany would be like knocking on his door.
Oh, really?
I totally forgot about Eddie.
Type. Okay.
Eddie Munson.
Yes.
So Eddie, he's sort of a mentor figure for the younger kids. They're not really kids. They're in high school.
Excellent actor.
And toward the end, spoiler alert, so again, skip forward 30 seconds, but it's very clear Eddie and Dustin have a very close relationship. And at the end, Eddie is mortally wounded in the Upside Down. And one of his dying conversations he has with Dustin is like, hey man, I love you. And again, it's very clear from the context, just a close friendship.
Yeah.
And again, that's another thing that the Stranger Things seems to go out of their way to portray good friendships.
That's true. Also, I heard that Eddie might not be dead.
Oh, he better be dead.
Hey, let me hope.
Well, here's the thing. I feel like, okay, sorry, Vase. I know you have a relevant point, but here's my irrelevant point. One of my criticisms of Stranger Things, I thought season 4 was fantastic. They haven't killed off enough main characters. They need to show stakes.
That's true.
They haven't really killed a core character in a long time.
That's true.
Anyway, Evangeline.
Bloodthirsty. Jeez.
I know. Evangeline, back to your relevant point.
I just was going to make the point that I think we are starting to see more guy friendships and male emotions portrayed positively on the screen.
Yeah.
Like I'm seeing that, intentionally. And I think that's fantastic. That's like a teeny tiny step in the right direction. And it may be because though that ends up happening on the things that I end up watching, because it does seem like there's probably still a lot of the other, we don't talk about our feelings kind of.
Right. You're just watching the right shows.
I may just
but
be
at
watching.
least there are options.
Yes.
Because there didn't used to be, especially in the 80s. I mean, although I will say, Magnum.
I think that's a good one.
Magnum PI had two very good friends, TC and Rick.
I actually have an example from the 80s too.
Okay.
Top Gun.
Oh, very true.
Maverick and Goose. Very good friendship.
That's
and I did not see the new Top Gun, but I heard they had some good ones too.
That was pretty good. I don't know why it was nominated for an Oscar, but okay.
Yeah, no.
Well. But that's Peter's. If he were up here right now,
me and Peter will talk, and we'll tell you why.
He loves Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick. Yep.
I was telling Danielle a while back, like for dudes of my generation, like when they think, what does it mean to be cool? It's like, well,
I feel the
basically
need.
It's Tom Cruise in Top Gun and Harrison Ford in Star Wars. That's what it means to be cool.
Oh,
you act like them, and you're cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, again, Tom Cruise, Maverick and Goose, great friendship.
Yes, very true. That is true.
All right, so I want to close. Let's sort of close. If you have any other good ones, I'm going to share one of my favorite ones, and that is from the movie The Sandlot.
Oh, I love that. Don't by accident watch The Sandlot 2.
I hear it's
terrible.
Yeah, it looks pretty.
I got
bad.
it by accident.
But anyway, Sandlot. It takes place in like the 1960s, and it's basically this group of boys who play baseball together during the summer on this little patch that's like crappy field, beneath someone's house, behind someone's house. And at the beginning, the main kid, like the narrator of the story, he's this, kind of nerdy kid, new to town, doesn't have any friends. And the coolest kid is Benny the Jet Rodriguez, because he's the best. When you're a boy, if you're the best baseball player, you're also the coolest, right? So the nerdy kid tries to get in with this group of kids, but the other kids are kind of a jerk to him because he's bad at baseball. But Benny brings him in. He gives him a good baseball mitt. He gives him the right baseball hat. He teaches him how to play. It's like, I was actually thinking, because my kids are almost old enough to watch that movie. It was like, hey guys, you want to see what it means to be a good friend? Okay, be like Benny. Benny's a good friend.
Yeah.
Goes out of his way to make him feel connected, and they become lifelong friends because of it in the movie.
Well, you just reminded me, I don't know why I didn't think of this before, because it is hands down my favorite TV show of all time is The Wonder Years. And if you haven't watched it, you really should, because the storytelling, the narration, the character arcs, the whole thing. But the main character is Kevin, which is Fred Savage, and his best friend is Paul. And there's no hint of any of that. I'm not going to Google it to find out if anybody thinks anything.
They have. There's a Reddit
But-
thread.
There's always somebody.
Are you making that up?
No, I'm sure
You're
there's
assuming.
I'm sure
Okay,
there's
okay.
a Reddit thread.
But anyway,
Yes.
well, Reddit, the trash can of the internet. Anyway, but Kevin and Paul not only is this just, it's a good example of guy friends where there's no hint of that, but also it's just a good example because they get legit mad at each other. They fail each other. And that's one of the reasons I love the show so much, is because every single character is very real and they fail one another and they have to work through. It's not like the Full House scene sitting on the bed at the end with the music where everything works out.
The crowd goes, "Aw," and then they
right.
applaud.
Yes, exactly. And so Kevin and Paul really go through stuff. And the series spans all the way through high school, from elementary through high school. And their friendship it's real. And it's real because, like, one of the best episodes, because Paul is Jewish, is Paul's bar mitzvah. And Kevin is not Jewish. He's Protestant or something. And but it's like a really good episode because it shows, even though they're friends, there are aspects of Paul that Kevin doesn't know. And there's, that's one of the best episodes, is the bar mitzvah episode. And it just shows, like Evangeline said, like, friendship has to be intentional, and it is its own reward,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like it. So, Evangeline, any closing friendships that you wanted to share?
Another, I guess, point for friends to lovers. I am digging the Aziraphale and Crowley.
What show is this?
That's Good Omens.
I have not watched Good Omens.
Oh, David Tennant and Michael.
Oh, David Tennant. Why have I not watched
what's
Good
his
Omens?
Name? Michael Sheen.
Oh, the one
Absolutely.
who played Moriarty in the Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock.
Is that
It is
him?
Sheen, but
Sheen. He's just absolutely like a darling human being.
yes.
Yes. Yeah. So they're like,
Okay, I have to watch
they're a
that.
demon and an angel, and it's like their
Which
story.
one's the demon? Oh, you can't. Okay, never
No,
mind.
you know. Come on. Who would it be?
The demon, Tennant.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, but I've seen the other guy do other stuff, so he could have been a demon too.
Yeah, it's just.
But
hard to
yeah,
imagine.
Tennant.
But anyway, so it's their friendship throughout the millennia, and then the very last season they did get together at the very end, but there was this tension, and I'm digging it because I think that they've laid the groundwork. So yeah, here I am arguing devil's advocate again.
Devil's advocate on a show
Literally
about
for
a
Good
devil.
Omens.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So there we go. Have we learned anything about friendship from this conversation, or anything else final complaints we'd like to have? I do think we are going in a more healthy direction recently.
Yeah. And I think it really is, like you said, it's a sad reality that men have a hard time making friendships. How do they go about it? How do they make sure, like, they don't feel awkward? Like, they have not been taught how to share feelings with each other, and still be a man,
Yeah.
Just need to go to war, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you guys don't have friends.
Surely
We need to all fly fighter jets.
Yeah.
That's how you make a best friend.
Yeah.
Anyway, as you all can probably tell, things are winding down at the Anselm Society Digital Pub. The customers are trundling home. You've polished off your final glass, and the fire, well, it's down to embers. Once again, Believe to See is a podcast of the Anselm Society Arts Guild. If you have a few seconds to spare, please rate and review the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time.